With Season of the Wish came Update 7.3.0, which included major sandbox changes such as buffs to underperforming exotics like the Apotheosis Veil and Shards of Galanor, and new meta-defining weapons like Dragon's Breath, a rocket that most wrote off immediately simply because it wasn't Galahorn. So in today's video, I'll be covering two insanely powerful damage combos that are the perfect pairing for Dragon's Breath and have quickly become my favorite DPS loadouts in all of Destiny 2. I'm Above, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. For those who aren't familiar, Apotheosis Veil received a buff at the start of the season that now grants significant regen to all of your abilities for 8 seconds after using your super. Now this may not sound crazy at first, but when you think back to Starfire Protocol and just how dominant fusion grenades were against bosses, you can start to see the potential here. Well of Radiance is the perfect pairing for this because it's a quick cast super that allows you to drop your well, then spam your fusion grenades. No need to passively damage a boss with weapons like Witherhoard, this just works. It's slightly slower than Starfire's peak regen was, but this slight gap in grenade regen time actually gives us the opportunity to pair our fusion grenades with heavy and special weapons for higher total damage in extremely ammo efficient loadouts. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the first weapon pairing that comes to mind is actually Dragon's Breath. The exotic perk states that rockets embed themselves in struck targets and periodically eject incendiary fuel that inflicts Scorch. The longer this goes without firing, the more fuel the next rocket contains. As you can see here, the rocket ejects fuel every few seconds or so, which is what helps us reach the maximum ×5 fuel stacks. And when this happens, the weapon will actually auto-load itself from reserves. This makes Dragon's Breath the perfect pairing for Apotheosis Veil because you want to stow the rocket and use your fusion grenades and special weapons to passively damage a boss while Dragon's Breath auto-loads itself for maximum damage. The Catalyst, which isn't even featured in this video, regens fuel stacks even faster, which allows you to swap and damage with your rockets more frequently than you're seeing here, and the total damage numbers are already off the charts. Shards of Galanor also received a substantial buff this season, taking the super regen that Shards provided to Blade Barrage and applying that same functionality to the Hunter's throwing knives. The patch note details that each charge melee final blow now provides 2.5 to 5% super regen depending on the type of enemy combatant that is killed. And since the knock 'em down aspect refunds your knives on successful charged melee final blows, you can use this to repeatedly charge your super even during damage phases. Though this has a bit of a skill gap to it, when used correctly, this exotic can provide you with an absurd number of supers during longer boss fights, such as Caretaker with multiple plates, Prophecy with several platforms, or the lengthy damage phases in Warlord's Ruin. Now let's start pairing these together. You'll always want to open a damage phase with Dragon's Breath as it allows the fuel stacks to start charging right away. In the downtime between shots, you can use your fusion grenades with Apotheosis Veil or Blade Barrage on Hunter, then start damaging with other weapons. In the background, you'll find a few end of activity screens that were taken after runs with my community on stream, and as you can see, the total damage of some of these combos is absolutely insane. The final piece of this damage setup is our special weapons. You'll have some downtime waiting for Dragon's Breath to auto-load itself after using your super, which means we can add in ammo-efficient weapons like Supremacy that we can spam for additional damage. Lightweight snipers are great for this because you can get your shots out quickly, while perks like Rewind Rounds and Kinetic Tremors eliminate the need to reload while adding additional sources of passive damage. The Scatter Signal is another fantastic option, which is a new, fully craftable strand fusion that can roll with perks like Overflow and Controlled Burst. We also have the highly popular Riptide, which will increase the damage of your rockets by 5% thanks to Torch, an artifact mod that allows enemies affected by stasis effects such as Chill Clip to boost our solar weapon damage. The high base damage of Dragon's Breath actually makes these loadouts solid for DPS, but where they really shine is in long boss fights, such as the final two bosses in Warlord's Ruin, where ammo efficiency is key, putting up massive total damage. These are easily some of the best solo loadouts in the game because you aren't reliant on ammo and can also put up nasty damage numbers in a fire team as well. With that said, you typically don't want more than one of these in a fire team, as the ignitions this rocket rocket creates are on a universal cooldown, which means most of the ignition damage will be limited to one person. Think of it like how shatter damage works with chill clip rockets or how passive tick damage works with Wither Horde. Running two of them can speed up the rate of ignitions, but unless you're really optimizing this, you're better off using a legendary rocket with Wolfpack rounds instead. Now it's time to bring this all together. On Warlock, I typically start with Sunbracers for ad clear and survivability with restoration ×2, then swap to Apotheosis Veil just before damage. This way, when I pop my Well of Radiance, I get 8 seconds of rapid fusion grenade regen to pair with Dragon's Breath. I start by firing a rocket to let the fuel timer begin and follow it up with fusion grenades. But since we can't immediately throw a second grenade, I'll typically shoot 2 sniper shots at the boss between each one and repeat this process until the regen has expired. It takes a bit of practice to get used to this timing, but you can expect to throw between 4 and 5 fusion grenades at the start of a damage phase. It's at this point that you'll hear the rocket auto-load itself, which means that you can swap back to Dragon's Breath to start passively building the timer yet again. From here, you'll start dumping special ammo with the weapon of your choice, which is why ammo-efficient options are so important here. You'll then rinse and repeat this process until the damage phase ends, at which point you can swap back to Sunbracers and carry on with ad clear. For our hunters, the build is a bit more straightforward. I personally find Shards of Galanor to be a more well-rounded exotic than the Apotheosis Veil, as you can use your knives to feed supers outside of just damage phases. Apotheosis Veil is extremely strong, but is far more niche in its use cases. The damage rotation will be similar for hunters, but with less steps. Start by applying your first rocket, throw your Blade Barrage, then spam your special weapons until you hear your rocket auto-load itself. If you have enemies nearby, you can turn and kill them with your knives to speed up your super regen, but I typically recommend doing this between plates to maximize your damage uptime. This way, I can dump as much ammo as possible and still get several supers off by securing throwing knife final blows between plates. For the purposes of this video, I wanted to showcase newly buffed exotics to give you an idea of just how powerful some of these newer builds can be, but Titans can absolutely do this as well. A Pyrogale Burning Maul can achieve very similar results, just with slightly less total damage, since it lacks the super regen and ability spam mechanics that the other subclasses have. This means that you'll have to rely more on your special weapons for sustained DPS, but on the flip side, you gain the benefit of higher burst damage from your super, similar to Celestial Nighthawk on Hunter. These builds don't require much setup, but a few important things to note are Touch of Flame and fusion grenades to pair with Apotheosis Veil, Knock 'em down to refund your melee for maximum super regen with Shards of Galanor, and Ember of Ashes to maximize the Scorch stacks being applied by Dragon's Breath on all 3. And to make it easy, I'll have builds for all 3 subclasses linked down in the description below. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. You can also catch me live over on Twitch at twitch.tv/above, where I play and meme with my amazing community on a daily basis. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!